Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post. The Trump administration is gutting the DOJ Civil Rights Division, forcing out seasoned managers and realigning its mission with Trump's executive orders, which means the DOJ Civil Rights Division is changing sides in the culture war. Memos from Harmeet Dillon, who now runs the division, instructs the division to focus on culture war issues like transgender athletes and K-12 radical indoctrination instead of traditional civil rights enforcement, which is when they harass police departments, accuse everyone of racism, push their progressive agenda. All of that's getting cut off now. Longtime civil rights lawyers describe the changes as unprecedented, alarming, and a complete abandonment of the division's historic mission. Investigations into police abuse and racial discrimination have been suspended or dropped, while new probes focus on gun rights and anti-Semitism at universities. Critics say that the overhaul reflects a wider effort by Trump allies to reshape federal agencies to wage ideological battles rather than protect constitutional rights. Yeah, that's what the critics say, but you know what's going on the same as I do. They aren't able to take away everyone's constitutional rights by pushing their ridiculous agendas. From NBC News, Trump upends DOJ Civil Rights Division, sparking bloodbath in senior ranks. Trump's handpicked head of the division has outlined priorities that are dramatically at odds with the way past administrations have enforced civil rights law. So imagine the Obama administration finally losing power of the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. That's what this is. Because all of these people were still operating and doing their things under Trump's first administration. Now it's all getting cleaned out. The Trump administration has quietly transformed the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, forcing out a majority of career managers and implementing new priorities that current and former officials say abandon a decades-long mission of enforcing laws that prohibit discrimination in hiring, housing, and voting rights. More than a dozen senior lawyers, many with decades of experience working under presidents of both parties, have been reassigned, the current and former officials are saying. Some have resigned in frustration after they were moved to less desirable roles unrelated to their expertise, literally like customer service and going through FOIA requests, which is how you get rid of people. You give them things they don't want to do because they're too good to do it in their own mind. Quote, "It's been a complete bloodbath," said a senior Justice Department lawyer in the division who is not authorized to speak publicly. Last week, President Trump's handpicked head of the division, Harmeet Dillon, issued a series of memos outlining priorities that are dramatically at odds with the way that both Republican and Democrat administrations have enforced civil rights law, including during the first Trump administration. This nonsense has been going on nonstop for decades now, with the worst offenders, of course, in the last 10 to 15 years. Rather than focusing on enforcing federal laws against discrimination, the division is now charged with pursuing priorities laid out in a series of Trump's executive orders, including keeping men out of women's sports and ending radical indoctrination in K-12 schooling, according to the memos which were issued by the division head Harmeet Dillon. According to their anonymous sources and people from this department, they say the Civil Rights Division really never pursued anything related to executive orders before. So even that approach is kind of a new approach because an executive order is not a law. It's important and it should be followed, but it's not like you're even following a distorted interpretation of a law. You're following an executive order. In addition to that, of course, there's been a tremendous amount of racism gone under the term diversity, equity, and inclusion. All of that is part of this as well. Those former experienced managers would never have taken up any of the discrimination based on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The new people will. Harmeet Dillon is a conservative culture warrior who represented Trump in challenging the results of the 2020 election. Quote, "This is a 180 shift from the division's traditional mission," said a former senior official in the division who declined to be named in fear of retaliation. I don't know who all these people think they are that are getting retaliated against. I haven't seen any of it in any of these articles, but they're all terrified. They need to all stay anonymous. Okay, fine. Quote, "These documents appear to have been created in a vacuum, completely divorced from reality," the former official said. "The division can only enforce statutes that have been passed by Congress, and these orders seem to contemplate division attorneys executing on work that fundamentally departs from the division's long-standing mission. The long-standing mission does not operate independently of the executive branch anymore. We have a new White House, we have a new administration. You're going to follow what the administration tells you to do, or you can go ahead and resign or get reassigned to opening letters or whatever. Do your work or get out of there. In a statement, Harmeet Dillon portrayed the changes as a normal shift of emphasis in a new administration, as well as a quest for efficiency. Quote, each new administration has its own priorities and allocates resources accordingly, according to Dillon. The Trump administration is no different. When I assumed my duties as Assistant Attorney General, I learned that certain sections in civil rights had substantial existing caseloads and backlogs, and that formed the basis of temporary details meaning assignments, to assist those sections in getting and staying caught up. So she's saying she's just moving people around because they have backlogs to do this and backlogs to do that. Still, it's not the kind of work that the experienced people want to do, and they should get to do whatever they want to do all of the time, with no exception. But of course, the real world doesn't work that way, and now welcome to the real world. She went on to say, quote, the Civil Rights Division looks forward to continuing to aggressively protecting the civil rights of Americans. NBC News, apparently in a panic of their own, spoke to 10 current and former employees of the Civil Rights Division for this article, as well as other sources familiar with the Justice Department's operations. Most declined to be identified for, fear of retaliation because everyone's going to come after them or something, citing fear of retaliation. Sources say many of the division's section chiefs have been transferred to roles unrelated to their legal backgrounds, including in the Complaint Adjudication Office and the office that handles public records requests. Because attorneys, citizens, organizations put in requests to find out, hey, where's this public information? Where's that public information? They put in a FOIA request. They don't get the request. The DOJ says, oh, we're too busy to work on that. We need to work on pushing DEI here and pushing DEI there and expanding transgender access to these K-12 schools. They do those kinds of things and don't follow up on answering to the people, which is what FOIA requests, for example, are all about. The whole thing is getting fixed. The whole thing is getting turned upside down. All of these people who've been playing games with our money and our taxes and our resources and our government are being taken out of power. Quote, every presidential administration has its own policies, said Stacey Young. That's this lady, who spent 18 years in the division before resigning in January. Quote, but I don't think there's any precedent for an administration almost completely refocusing the Civil Rights Division's enforcement priorities the way this one has. The loss is truly hard to quantify, added Young, who co-founded Justice Connection, a group now trying to highlight Trump administration changes to the Justice Department. Well, vital civil rights work is not going to get done. Yes, Stacey, the important work will actually be done. You just won't like it because the culture war has turned the tide. The overhaul of the Civil Rights Division is a microcosm of what's been happening across the federal government as the Trump administration has removed nonpartisan civil servants, supposedly nonpartisan civil servants, and dismantled or reoriented federal agencies with a speed and an audacity that few thought was possible. Similar changes have been happening to a lesser degree at other Justice Department offices, current and former officials are saying anonymously, we should say. But they say the extent of the repurposing of the Civil Rights Division stands out. The Civil Rights Division used to be a weapon for these people. Now that weapon's been taken away from them, and it's being repositioned at people that are actually breaking civil rights laws, or that are not in compliance with the very reasonable executive orders that say, listen, you need to protect children, you need to protect people of all races, and other priorities laid out by Trump. Founded in 1957 after the passage of the 20th century's first major civil rights legislation, the Civil Rights Division has always been subject to the policy preferences of the president, and enforcement priorities tend to differ in Republican and Democratic administrations. But there is no precedent for the changes that have been made over the last 3 months, which are far more consequential than anything that occurred in Trump's first term, according to former officials. Quote, I was there almost 18 years, and what's happening now is basically the opposite of what we've been doing, said a veteran lawyer who recently left the department. That is fantastic news. Quote, in the first Trump administration, they engaged with us as attorneys. The political appointees were normal layers. Sometimes we persuaded them, and sometimes they disagreed, but there was always a conversation about why and what the law required. That is not happening. They're just completely steamrolling these people. No wonder they're so upset. In the Biden administration, the Civil Rights Division convicted 180 police officers of violating people's civil rights, according to the Justice Department's records. It also prosecuted a variety of high-profile hate crime cases, including one against a Texas man who targeted Mexicans when he killed 23 people at a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, and the Pennsylvania man who killed 11 congregants at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. Okay, great. Obviously, killers should be arrested and brought to justice. No, you don't need the Civil Rights Division messing around there. I don't care if this woman thinks a murder is a hate crime or not. A murder is a murder. Put the guy in jail. At least bring him to court first, put him in jail, and then put him in prison. Case closed. Among the many settlements over racial discrimination, the division secured reforms at Hawkins County Schools in Tennessee, where an investigation found that incidents of harassment, including a mock slave auction to sell black students to their white counterparts and a Monkey of the Month campaign to ridicule black students, created a racially hostile environment. Well, of course that's wrong. If you've got 2 examples of that, both of those examples are really bad. So why don't you have this woman or someone else work full-time on just those matters? That's fine. That leaves you 599 other employees to actually do productive work, go after racial discrimination of all races, not just one race, and all religions, not just one religion, and maybe even take one person per race and let them work on that. Now you've got 5 people, maybe 10 people. The rest of the people can go after DEI, men and women's sports, boys and girls sports, indoctrination in the schools, all those things that we do not want. Get in there and get rid of it. On voting rights, the division successfully challenged an Arizona law requiring people registering to vote to list their birthplaces and provide proof of citizenship. Because otherwise we would have legitimate elections, which who wants that? Well, we all want that. Hopefully, Harmeet Dillon will do great and help us with our elections. Current and former employees say many of those enforcement actions are unimaginable under the new regime. Quote, they are withdrawing everything we've done and taking the opposite side on voting rights, for example, said a recently departed Civil Rights Division lawyer. This is not, oh, we want to do more religion cases, or, oh, we don't want to do creative redlining cases. This is abandoning everything we've done in the past. They're actively anti-civil rights. This didn't happen in Trump 1. Dillon took office April 7th, but the changes have already been underway. So far, the Civil Rights Division has suspended investigations of police abuse and launched probes into whether Los Angeles is violating people's gun rights and whether American universities are tolerating anti-Semitism. Well, yeah, there are problems there, so please do investigate that if you have people that are supposed to be protecting civil rights. The division was also involved in the lawsuit filed last week accusing the state of Maine of violating the law by allowing transgender athletes to participate on women's sports teams. Men and women's sports, yes, people are still concerned about that because it hasn't been completely resolved. Don't women have civil rights anymore? Like, okay, they're supposed to. They certainly ought to. At the same time, current and former officials say the managerial jobs vacated in recent weeks have not been filled, so the traditional work of the division has all but stopped. Quote, if regular Americans think that this administration is going to protect their rights, they are just wrong, according to a sassy, recently departed division lawyer. In their Project 2025 blueprint, conservative Trump backers wrote that Trump should reorganize and refocus the DOJ's Civil Rights Division to serve as a vanguard for what they call a return to lawfulness. Yes, they should, and that's what they're doing. Quote, entities across the private and public sectors in the United States have been besieged in recent years by an unholy alliance of special interests, radicals in government, and the far left, they wrote. This unholy alliance speaks in platitudes about advancing the interests of certain segments of American society, but that advancement comes at the expense of other Americans and in nearly all cases violates long-standing federal law. Dillon's memos issued last week laid out a sweeping set of new priorities. The Federal Coordination and Compliance Section, for example, has been tasked with enforcing Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 by preventing and remedying discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, religion, and shared ancestry in federally funded programs across the country. Dillon's memo says the section now has new priorities not mentioned in the 1964 law, but outlined in Trump's executive orders, including those on defending women from gender ideology extremism, restoring merit-based opportunity, and designating English as the official language of the United States. You can't get more American than that. Yeah, let's do it. On Tuesday, Attorney General Pam Bondi hosted a meeting of a new Trump administration task force on eradicating anti-Christian bias. Quote, the Biden administration engaged in an egregious pattern of targeting peaceful Christians while ignoring violent anti-Christian offenses, she said. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.